Hello and welcome to Unbossed. So glad that you are here today. I was just vibing with the intro today. I'm just feeling it today. I don't know why, but I am feeling it extra today. And so glad to have in the co-host chair, Big Waz. Big Waz, happy New Year. I think this is our first time being together since the New Year started. Or is
Yes.
It's our
Thank
first
you.
time.
Happy New Year to you as well. Some people would say this a faux pas to still be wishing people Happy New Year in February, but I'll take it. And also,
I'm gonna keep it going until at least until the end of February.
and also, I celebrated a birthday yesterday. I turned 36 years old yesterday. So yeah, Big Waz is becoming big washed, big old.
No, I don't think so. Because if you're old, then hey, what does that say about me? I refuse to go like that, baby. I'm like a fine wine, getting better.
You absolutely
with time, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Oh my God! Happy belated birthday!
Thank you so much.
And I hope all of our viewers who comment today that we get to, that you guys wish Big Waz a happy belated birthday, born day, as some folks say. This is so important. And Big Waz is a TYT contributor, as we all know. On the show today, what are we gonna talk about? We are so glad that you asked. Tomorrow or tonight, President Joe Biden will give the State of the Union address. That is happening tonight. That is much watched TV. So we are going to kind of forecast some of the things that he will be talking about tonight. And then Tucker is at it again. He went on a racist tangent per usual. And later in the show, oh my God, the mama in me is just perking with joy. We'll highlight a very special 9-year-old high school graduate. Did you hear me? 9-year-old high school graduate. He's definitely making me feel like an underachiever. All right, so here we go. Turkey's death toll. So we did start off the show yesterday and talking about what is happening to our sisters and brothers, family and friends in Turkey. And it continues to come out all that the people of that nation are enduring. Take a look. What you just watched was a Turkish rescue worker attempt to find survivors in one ruined building while yet another one collapses. And the latest, this headline, death toll from massive Turkey, Syria earthquake passes 6,000. The death toll from Monday's devastating earthquake and more than 300 aftershocks in southeast Turkey and northern Syria soared over 6,000. This was as of Tuesday, and crews raced to try to find survivors in the rubble of thousands of collapsed buildings. The aftershocks, including a magnitude 5.7 trembler that hit Tuesday, made the search itself dangerous. Now, Turkey's president declared a state of emergency for 3 months. No surprise there, across 10 provinces in the earthquake zone. We want to break some of this down by the numbers from Turkey/Syria earthquake. 6,000 people dead, 8,000 people have been pulled from under the rubble, 20,000 people taking part in the rescue efforts. Thank you. 380,000 people taking refuge in shelter. So that is by the numbers. We're getting that from The Guardian, also CBS News. Thank you very much. The sad reality, however, is that thousands of children may be among the dead. And why did this happen? So earthquakes are common in Turkey, which sits in a very seismically active region. So poor construction in that area is also a known problem. Many of the collapsed buildings appear to have been built from concrete without adequate seismic reinforcement. Seismic building codes in this region suggest that these buildings should be able to sustain strong earthquakes where the ground accelerates by 30 to 40% of the normal gravity without incurring this type of complete failure. Infrastructure, so important to communities all across the world. And so why not rebuild the buildings? Even though Turkish authorities know many buildings are unsafe in earthquakes, it is still a difficult problem to solve. Many of the buildings are already built, and seismic retrofitting may be expensive or not considered a priority compared to other social economic challenges. That reporting coming from CBS News. And then lastly, however, reconstruction after the quake may present an opportunity to rebuild more safely. That's what we want. In 2019, Turkey adopted new regulations to ensure buildings are better equipped to handle the shaking. So Big Wise, obviously this news is devastating. It's really sad to see this happen in any nation. Glad to see people from many nations, speaking of nations, really coming to the aid of our sisters and brothers and family and friends in the Turkey, Syria region.
Yeah, it's just really harrowing stuff. You mentioned infrastructure issues within the country. I would just hope that as a world community, folks, the powers that be, to get together to get these folks some adequate help and aid in helping the refurbishing of the places over there. If this is a really, volatile and seismic area of the world, I would hope that we could get the help in there to, retrofit these buildings for safety, so that when the next one happens, we don't have this level of death toll. And then, specifically to the people of Syria, who for the last decade plus essentially have been involved in a bitter, bloody civil war, a man-made disaster, to have a natural disaster happen to those folks, compounding that, and all the difficulties that they already have to endure. It's really sad stuff, deeply felt. Obviously, my thoughts go out to the people out in Turkey and Syria, because they're dealing with something, that I couldn't even imagine. Well, we live here in Los Angeles, where, there's a lot of earthquakes, and you think about it all the time living here.
Sure.
Especially in Southern California, just the dangers of that. And so to see that happen over there, makes me think of my own safety, honestly.
Yeah, obviously, and definitely thoughts and prayers, and we know action is happening in that region as well to try to bring some relief to the families there. So our State of the Union, president is going to be giving it the spin before the spin. Watch this.
New Washington Post ABC News poll finds only 36% of voters believe Biden has accomplished a great or good deal. 62% think he's accomplished not much or little. What do you make of these numbers? It even has independents more in Trump's camp than Biden's camp.
Yeah, look, polls will always fluctuate. It's so far from the 2024 election. I think what's exciting for folks like me and a lot of others is, Biden's the most progressive president we've had.
I sigh deeply. There's my sigh. What you just watched was Kyle Penn, former associate director for the White House Office of Public Engagement under President Obama, and actor, put the spin on the poll numbers. I mean, the poll numbers are what they are, and we should not discount how people are feeling in this moment. You got to acknowledge how people are feeling right now. And this is all ahead of the state of the state that will be happening tonight. What is the president's Twitter saying about the state of state? Trying to get us prepared for what he will say. The last time the unemployment rate was this low, we had yet to set foot on the moon. Think about that. I'm thinking about that. Together, we're building an America where everyone has a fair shot. Now, we want that to be true. I definitely want that to be true. Don't you want that to be true? It's not realized yet, but we do want that to be true. And my stunt double had to weigh in on what the president had to say. She just had to weigh in on the spin. Here she goes. 71% of Americans say the country is moving in the wrong direction. 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, but corporate profits are up. And any guess as to how the corporate media responds to the State of the Union this evening? Yeah, we can guess. So Americans aren't feeling what the president is offering right now. They're not feeling what he's throwing down. Let's take a look at this headline. 40% of Americans say they're worse off financially under Biden. Highest percentage for any president in 37 years. Yet we got old dude over there saying that he's the most progressive president ever. I guess the American people are not buying that. And let's put up this next headline: record high in US put off medical care due to costs in 2022. And many of you may remember we were covering the story about the mass shootings that happened in California, and how the governor of that state he went to the hospital and visited some people. And one gentleman in particular he talked to said, I got to get out of here. Not because he felt like he was ready to go medically, but because he didn't want a high medical bill. Imagine that, just being a victim of a mass shooting and saying to the governor of your state, I got to go because I cannot afford healthcare costs. So the Brian Dicey, director of Biden's National Economic Council, had the audacity to throw it back in the face of these Americans who are expressing their angst. And this was what dear old Brian had to say. If you look at the key measures of basic economic security, do I have health insurance? Do I have $400 in the bank in case my car breaks down? Or I have another emergency expense? Am I late or delinquent on credit card bill? Am I facing foreclosure? If you look at all of those measures, on average, American households are in a better position than they were before the pandemic hit. And that's true for lower income quantiles as well. Oh my God, that's a crock of sugar. Feeling, I mean, really, that does not jive with the numbers, and it does not jive with the poll and what the American people are saying when they are asked. As for the inflation, which we know is driven by corporate greed overwhelmingly, as our good friend Dr. Robert Reich points out time and time again, a windfall profits tax. The largest oil companies, which are recording their biggest profit in years, and use the money to provide quarterly checks to Americans facing sticker shock as inflation continues to skyrocket. It is a no-brainer. In other words, this ain't rocket science. Don't forgive the pun, because the pun was very much intended. Big Wos, your thoughts on this?
You know, I think, and even somebody like me, I fall into this trap of believing that Americans, on the whole, tend to be a little dumber than they should be, and not quite intelligent. And oftentimes it's because of, a certain level of self-absorption that our culture encourages us to participate in. But looking at that Biden tweet, I think where he gets it wrong and just believing these people are so self-deluded is that because people are so self-involved, they understand that their parents and their grandparents, one person went to work, the other stayed home, they owned a house, they owned a car, they could take vacations, they had sick days, they could afford healthcare. Like, one person went to work, and it's not like they had these elite jobs in tech and media or finance or whatever. These people had normal jobs at a plant. One person went to work and could achieve all of those ends that I just described to you. That's not the case now. So when you talk about the rate of employment here, we're not gonna pretend that the quality of this employment is equal to that of those that existed before we put a guy allegedly on the moon, right? It's like Americans aren't stupid. They can just look at their own reality. That I can't afford a mortgage. I can't afford a car. I can't afford to take my family on vacation. I can barely afford healthcare. In fact, if I get a messed up, diagnosis, I might go to the poorhouse. I might become homeless. Like, these things are obvious truths, and to pretend that they're not is just insane to me.
Yeah, Wos, it's delusional. And even people who are in the upper middle class, they are one health scare away. It depends on what it is. It can wipe you totally out, all your savings, everything that you've built for. And so this system as it exists, you're absolutely right, it's unattainable. And to have people who live inside the bubble disregard what Big Mama and Big Papa are saying and feeling, you talk about being out of touch. It is a total disservice. You have to absorb what the people are saying and have a vision to provide provision and not be in total denial. So the president isn't ready to take responsibility or hold these corporations accountable. Take a look at this.
Taking blame for inflation? No.
Why not?
because it was already there when I got here, man. Remember what the economy was like when I got here? Jobs were hemorrhaging. Inflation was rising. We weren't manufacturing a damn thing here. We were in real economic difficulty. That's why I don't.
And we are still in economic difficulty. I'm telling you, Woz, I'm gonna have to break this out. I'm gonna have to break her out. This is what this is coming to right now, listening to that. And he boldly said, no, I don't take responsibility. Well, why in the hell are you the president of the United States of America? You have got to take not only responsibility, you have an obligation to have a vision that provides provision for the people. And we got something for that. It's called the windfall tax. I mean, there is a way, Woz, to bring mega dollars into the federal coffers to be able to provide a deeper safety net and help for people who are in need.
Nina, it's so obvious where the inflation areas came from, and what were the things that were causing inflation, like legitimate COVID issues, legitimate logistical issues, basically getting stuff from China. Who, sorry, Joe Biden, you were part of the push of neoliberalism, of globalizing the economy, of bringing in cheaper goods, even though it was driving down the wages of American citizens. You were part of the wave that brought in this system of economics in the first place. And secondly, it's not as if Joe Biden was somebody who's like, you know what? There is actual price gouging going on. All of this isn't because American citizens got 25 extra $100 in their pockets. Like, legitimately, corporations said, yo, they're saying this is an inflationary environment. Let's raise our prices. Let's raise groceries. Let's raise everything on these folks, because all we hear is this inflation panic, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's not as if Joe Biden and his people up there in his administration have done everything and fought tooth and nail to claw back that greed. They've done the opposite. They've acted like this is their right, this is their provenance, the corporations, to do this to people. Like, these prices don't just magically go up. People who are in charge of these companies and corporations make a conscious decision to say, let's raise the prices.
Right,
We've
and all the
slash jobs and raise prices. What is that? More profit, come on.
That's it, Big Woz. And the corporate buybacks, even while they are on the company dole, on the taxpayers' dole, they're doing all of these corporate buybacks to increase profits. And these are obscene profits. Because Woz and I, we not against corporate. Yeah, make your profit. But if you're making your profit on the backs and the necks and the hearts and the future of people of this country, then it is wrong. If it causes the citizens of this nation harm, grave harm, to the extent they can't even afford to buy eggs, then something is wrong with the way that you are making your profits. It is called unfettered greed. And it's not like the president doesn't have any tools at his disposal. There are solutions to prevent such inflation, such as the ultra millionaire 2-cent tax from Senator Elizabeth Warren. Let's throw this up, team. A family with a net worth of more than 50 million, roughly the wealthiest 75,000 households, would pay a 2% or a 2-cent tax on every dollar of their net worth above 50 million, and a 6% or 6 cents tax for every dollar above 1 billion. Wealth in this country is so lopsided that this small new tax on a tiny sliver of ultra rich families will bring in $3.75 trillion over the next 10 years. That is coming from Senator Elizabeth Warren, or a windfall tax. Let's put up with, again, Dr. Robert Reich had to say about this situation. A windfall profits tax would tax the largest oil companies, which are recording their biggest profits in years. Just what Woz was talking about. And use money to provide quarterly checks to Americans facing sticker shock as inflation continues to skyrocket. It is a no-brainer. So listen, America, there are solutions to these problems. The challenge is that we don't have elected officials with the intestinal fortitude to do these things because they are too busy answering to the owner-donor class. Something is wrong with that. And progressives have other solutions here. The progressive agenda is important. It's needed. And in 2021, there was a whole group, like a solid path of uplift and changing material conditions for people in this country that was agreed upon by the Congressional Progressive Caucus, who definitely is useless in this moment, and also about 36 other organizations. This was in 2021. And the premise was that they were going to that they did in fact set an agenda, and that this agenda would be implemented in the first 6 months of 2021. And unfortunately, most of this did not happen, but the roadmap is important. Let's revisit that roadmap. Let's take a look. The 7 planks of the people's agenda. Part 1, provide COVID relief that meets the scale of the crisis and addresses the disproportionate harm to Black, Indigenous, people of color, and other vulnerable communities, meaning poor people all across the board. Put people back to work, give workers more power, and transform to a clean, renewable energy economy. This president is giving out more oil permits than the president before him. Ensure health care for everyone, universal health care. The 7 planks of the people's agenda, part 2, let's take a look at that. Defend and expand voting rights, strengthen democracy, end corruption, dismantle racism, white supremacy, and inequality in all institutions. End endless wars and invest in diplomacy and peace. End corporate greed and corporate monopolies. I mean, I'm old enough to remember that when the Congressional Progressive Caucus just happened to send a letter and they were rebuked, and then they snatched back the damn letter. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we're talking about here. We need intestinal fortitude. The progressive agenda is the agenda for most Americans because most Americans agree with those tenets. And then it's also time to implement the 21st century economic bill of rights. We remember that President FDR, he had an economic bill of rights as well. This is drawing upon this. So the 21st century economic bill of rights, part 1, the right to a useful job that pays a living wage, the right to a voice in the workplace through a union and collective bargaining, the right to comprehensive quality health care, the right to a complete cost-free public education and access to broadband internet, which is a necessity, the right to decent, safe, affordable housing. Part 2 of that, let's lay it down. The right to a clean environment and a healthy planet. The right to a meaningful endowment of resources at birth and a secure retirement. The right to sound banking and financial services. The right to an equitable and economically fair justice system. The right to recreation and participation in civic and democratic life. I got to shout out Professor Harvey Kaye and the director of Progressive Democrats of America, Alan Minsky, for just laying this down and being able to work together to take what President FDR had put out in the 40s and refine it for the 21st century. This isn't some pie in the sky. These things can happen, Woz, because we are a hegemon nation. We can do those things.
Nina, I just, first of all, obviously I agree with every single thing you just said, but I do want to bring it back to the original point that you brought up, where Joe Biden and his cronies are bragging about this guy being the most progressive president of our time, allegedly. Let's just be extra clear here. We've seen worker militancy at a rate that is unparalleled in like sectors of the economy that are unrelated. John Deere, Starbucks, the rail workers, and let's stick on the rail workers for a second, right? These corporations cut jobs, they raise prices on everybody. Then the people who they manage to still keep employed, they don't raise their wages. So where's all this extra money going to? Then the workers show some level of militancy. They go on a strike at the most opportune time for themselves. And what do you know? Good old friend of the worker, Joe Brandon Biden, and his cronies in the Congress, they side on the side of who? Of management, of the money. So I don't want to hear this crap about this dude and his progressivism and this idea that workers and the citizens are supposed to just sit here and take all this crap. It's absolute garbage, honestly. And nobody's falling for it. More importantly, people can see the reality of their lives and know that this is crap. It's just crap.
There it is, Wise. Well, like we say in the Black church, when the sermon has been preached, amen. Amen to that. So we're gonna stay tuned to see what happens tonight. I think Big Wise and we got it right. There will be a spin, and then spin on top of that, and people will be on top of their head, spinning. They're gonna continue to spin despite what Big Mama and Big Papa have to say about their lived conditions. There is something wrong with that. Now to our viewer comments, one of my favorite parts. Absolute favorite parts of the show. Big Wise, this is what we got coming from TYT members. Biden's flavor corn pop. Biden flavor corn pop. Happy New Year to you, baby. Nina with fire emojis. Girl, I got fire extinguishers for all of us. Amen to that. And Bill's Dragon saying people are better off because they have $400 for car repairs when no car repair costs under $400. You better say that. Just shows how wildly out of touch this administration is. You got that right. And the people in the bubble and the people spinning on their behalf. They need to visit the hoods where people are misunderstood. And that's the rural hood, the urban hoods, and the suburban hoods. And listen to what the people have to say about what they are enduring in this country. And on Twitch, Super Bad Mama. Hey, Super Bad Mama. Happy birthday, Waz.
Thank you, Super Bad Mama. Much appreciated.
Much appreciated. And for Ripper, Nina, you and your ideas are amazing. Thank you, darling. I appreciate that. And on YouTube Super Chat, Hoover, if Biden is the quote most progressive president we've ever had, then I'm the Pope and Beyonce. Hello, somebody. Hoover say I'm the Pope and Beyonce all rolled up in one. I don't think the world ready for that, baby. You better say that. And there it is. Thank you so much for your comments, man. You got Wise and yeah, y'all telling some truth today. Thank you so much for your support of the show. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. We appreciate you. Now we move on to Tucker. This Tucker Carlson never stops. Watch this.
97 federal judges confirmed under Joe Biden. Total number of white men, 5. 22 are black women. So this is race-based hiring. It's illegal, but it's also not about looking like America. It's about punishing people.
Wise, this is gonna put side by side. Wise, I'm gonna need about 50 of these right about now. You hear me? Okay, I'm about to open this stuff up and just start spraying and then running around the room. And then Marissa's gonna say, and Sachi like, what is she doing in that studio? Listen, this dude, and replace dude with some other choice words, is out of his mind. He gets paid millions of dollars to spew this kind of nonsense, this kind of foolishness and mayhem, this kind of BS. Here is what known racist Tucker Carlson is referencing. Let's put this up. Of the 97 federal judges confirmed under Biden, 5 are white men, 22 are black women. From LSAT data taken from a typical year when these students attended law school, 29 blacks scored above 170, more than 1,900 whites scored above 170. First of all, the data point that they're using is wrong all day long and twice on Sundays. But what Tucker failed to mention, what this dude failed to mention, was that even with those nominees, the judiciary remains disproportionately white. I got to throw some papers now on this one. Did y'all hear me? Remains disproportionately, not 50-50, we ain't even close, disproportionately white. When Biden came into office, the federal bench was overwhelmingly white and still is, even with his judicial confirmations. So Tucker, tuck it in, baby. Don't you worry your little sweet head off about black folks and women taking over the judiciary. Baby, they got a long way to go. So sweetness, don't you worry about that. Let's put this up, 69%. And I want y'all to hear me and read this well. 69% of federal judges are white. Bolded, underlined, underscored, message in a bottle on the train, not on Southwest. 69% of federal judges are white. A race that makes up 58% of the US population. Hello, somebody. Meanwhile, 62% of the bench is male. Hello, somebody. Though just over or just under half the US population is male. And all judges of color, including Black, Latino, and Asian American ones, and let's go on and put the swirls in between. Let's go and put the other folks up in there, amount to just 30% of the bench. Now remember, this isn't the first time that this dude has been terrible when it comes to judges. Remember this comment he made about Justice Ketanji Brown? I remember it like it was yesterday. Play the clip.
So is Ketanji Brown Jackson, a name that even Joe Biden has trouble pronouncing, one of the top legal minds in the entire country? We certainly hope so. Biden's right. Appointing her is one of his gravest constitutional duties. So it might be time for Joe Biden to let us know what Ketanji Brown Jackson's LSAT score was. What did she do in the LSATs? Why wouldn't he tell us that? That would settle the question conclusively as to whether she's a once-in-a-generation legal talent, the next learned hand.
Waz, I'm gonna bring you in right now. This mofo, and I mean that, to try to act as though Black people and other people of color are less than, and somehow are put in these positions to fill some quota, that they haven't earned these positions is sick. On the other side of that, to assume that all white folks, just because they're white, deserve to be in these positions. It is very obvious that this man is sounding a dog whistle. And first of all, he couldn't even pronounce her name properly. What an insult. This dude, again, gets paid millions of dollars to spew this kind of hate. I am Marissa and Sachi about to get out of this damn chair and run around the room. It's obvious. And he continues to make this assumption that Black people are not qualified to serve as judges. Put up this headline, team. New York City Bar Association finds Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson highly qualified for the Supreme Court of the United States of America. What Tucker Carlson is spewing is disgusting. And in order to flourish and grow and carry on, we absolutely need to prune and keep these people in check. We do. Wise, I'm really. Go ahead, take it over.
Tucker Carlson essentially, Nina, was saying that Ketanji Brown, she needs her freedom papers. She got to show her freedom papers. That's essentially what the boy was doing right there. And look, Tucker Carlson, it's funny because I actually have different critiques of Biden's sort of diversification of the federal government and appointments that have nothing to do, nothing to do with race. Tucker Carlson just straight up doesn't want to see Black people do anything of consequence ever. Like that's just his general stance, and he's a racist, and we know that. My problem with Biden and some of the things that he did was, when he promoted Lloyd Austin, plucked the guy straight from the board of Raytheon and put this dude up and be like, oh, he's the first Black to ever hold this job. And it's like, bruh, you pulled this dude from an institution that basically runs our federal government already, unchecked power, unchecked funding, unchecked everything, and tell me I'm supposed to be happy that he's the first Black. Ketanji Brown, of course, she doesn't come from Goldman or whatever, but she did go to the Ivy League. But guess what? She has a history in public advocacy. That's a stark departure from all of her colleagues on the bench, the Supreme Court bench. At least with her, you could be like, not only is she Black, her background is not that of most of the Black people we see ascend to power from white shoe law firms, from Harvard, from whatever corporate entities tend to tell these people what to do anyway. So that's obviously a critique that I've had of Joe Biden from the start. This notion that he's putting on too many Black people, give me a freaking break. I mean, that's just crazy.
It is. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. I don't know if the team could find that one slide we had up that lays out how many, the percentage who are white, the percentage who are women, percentage who are of color. We are a long way off. So sweetness, Tucker, dude, don't you worry your pretty little head off about it. The coloreds are not taking over the judiciary, because that's not mainly what you should just go on ahead and say. And to insinuate that Black folks and other people of color and women are not qualified for these positions is asinine on its face, and it continues to stoke this them versus us mentality in the United States of America. Dude, get your life. Get your life, man. Jesus, Mary and Joseph. I'm telling you, Wise, we can't even make this stuff up. This is real. Tucker, this dude, he first of all, he's a coward. Let's just go and put that out there. He's a coward. And that is why he preys on people's fears, because that's all he can do. He has no talent whatsoever. He's a grifter to the 10th degree. And that is why he stokes this white animus against Black people, against women, against poor people, against other people of color, because he's a damn coward, a multi-million-dollar coward. How dare he?
And
so,
we got
to stay. We got
add
to stay
on to what you were saying, Nina. Just one more thing that I would say to Tucker's viewers and listeners. There's this alleged Black and Latin, whatever colored people take over. When this thing was all white, I'd like to ask the people that are struggling in the heartland and Appalachia, in places like West Virginia, when our leaders were all white, what good did that do for those folks? It's not as if these white people get in power and they just empower all white people everywhere. It's nonsense. It's a good old boys network. They're not working to the betterment of the masses of white people. It's a load of crock. And that's what I would like to say to Tucker's audience is like, it's not as if these people in these elite institutions have the best interests of the white masses at heart. Just go to these places. Look at how the people in rural America have to live. Just go watch it. It's not as if these white elites have been helping them either.
It's a class struggle, Wise, and that's why I say Big Mama, Big Papa, and their family, their children are misunderstood in hoods all over this country, rural hoods, urban hoods, and suburban hoods. It is a class struggle, folks. And Tucker is a peddler of hate. He a pusher of hate. He a dealer of hate. That's what he is. And he getting paid far too much money to damn do it. Wise, you and I could put that money to better use, and we far more talented and beautiful too.
Thank you. That's very, very kind of you. Although Tucker does have nice hair, I will say that he does have a nice,
you give him more credit. I ain't giving him no credit. We are beautiful and we are brilliant.
Yes, you
light
are.
Light years ahead of this fool. Oh my God, and speaking of being light years ahead of a fool, do we have a treat for you? I am just so giddy, like the mama in me is giddy. I want you to check out this headline out of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania boy 9 becomes one of the youngest ever high school graduates. Can y'all hear the smile in my face? David recently received a diploma from Reach Cyber Charter School based in his state's capital of Harrisburg after taking classes remotely from his family home in a Philadelphia suburb. The local television station WGAL reported on Sunday. And let's go ahead and put up this beautiful, brilliant young man. There is David, baby, in all of his 9-year-old glory. David made history with his graduation. The achievement makes David one of the youngest known children to ever graduate high school, according to a list compiled by the history and culture website otis.org. This reporting is coming from The Guardian. Also, for what he wants to do when he's older, David has it locked down. This is what David had to say. I want to be an astrophysicist. That rolls off the tongue so nicely. Astrophysicist, and I want to study black holes and supernovas. In the meantime, David is continuing to advance his education and other activities. David, a member of the High School Intelligent Quotient Society, Mensa, has done one semester at Buck County Community College since graduating from Reach Charter. Meanwhile, he and his family have been doing their research into other colleges and universities to try to find the one that best suited for a boy who, besides his academics, is pursuing a martial arts black belt, enjoys other sports, and plays the piano. Why, I feel like such a damn underachiever.
Listen, when I was his age, I thought I was Hulk Hogan and was obsessed with Power Rangers. And so kudos to that kid. I would just really implore him, yes, pursue your astrophysicist stuff. Just please, for the love of God, don't go work at somebody's hedge fund or try to create the next job destroying tech app for these tech bros. Please, young brother, please. Don't do that.
We don't want David to get seduced by the other side. I don't think that he will. But kudos to David, to his parents, to his
beautiful
community.
Story.
It is a beautiful story that has cultivated this young, brilliant, black young little boy, because he's still a little boy. Woo, kudos to him. He is going to do great things in this world. We know that. You better go ahead on, baby. And I want y'all to soak all of that in. We had that extra good news today. I want you to take it in. We'll be right back after this.
Every day, the Young Turks delivers 2 hours of solid, fact-based, timely news and progressive commentary on all the day's most important stories. We keep our viewers informed while also providing perspective and insight on the news we cover, so you understand not only what's happening, but also what's happening behind the scenes, the stories behind the stories.
We play musical chairs and put these children in one awful detention facility to the next. That's what's happening at the border.
The things that got him banned, he's still spreading. So presumably, I think it's reasonable to say that if you allow him back on the website, he's going to do it again.
Any legal voter that we deem not willing to vote for my side shouldn't vote because it'll replace me that's supposed to vote for my side. That's not how voting works. That's not how democracy works.
And while many people following today's political news can get discouraged about the direction of the nation and the world, that's not us. At TYT, we're genuinely optimistic about the future, and with good reason. Today, wide majorities of Americans agree with our progressive stances on issues ranging from healthcare and education to climate, immigration, and wages. The rising generation of young people are also overwhelmingly progressive in their political beliefs and policy objectives, and they're increasingly flexing their muscle as voters and activists to demand change from our elected officials. The traditional mainstream media is mostly AWOL. They, along with the government and many other cherished institutions, have been captured by corporate interests. Audiences sense that they're not getting the whole story or even the truth from once trusted outlets, whether broadcasting cable TV news networks or national newspapers and magazines. The antidote is the Young Turks. Unlike mainstream corporate outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma, and we don't carry water for the Republican or Democratic parties. So watch us Monday to Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and join the thousands of progressives around the globe who tune in every day for TYT's unmatched, award-winning content and see what it's like to experience a news organization that only answers to you.
I don't care if you're Christian. In fact, I will fight for you to have your religious liberty and practice your Christianity. I believe in that. I don't believe in Christianity, which means that you do not get to dictate the way I live my life based on your religion. I don't care what the Bible says. You have every right in the world. All those women who identify with your religion have every right in the world to not get an abortion, to not take birth control, but they do not have the right to dictate my life and what I decide to do with my body. I don't care about your goddamn religion. I'm so tired of having nonstop conversations about what the Bible says. You live your life in the way that you interpret the Bible. Again, I don't care, but you don't get to take the Bible and tell me, well, the Bible says this in this chapter, in this verse. I don't care. I don't care. I don't believe in it. And I have the right, based on our Constitution, to not believe in it.
Here at the Young Turks, we do our best to bring you the most essential news stories of the day, but we can't cover everything in a 2-hour show. And for the rest, I recommend Ground News. Founded by a former NASA scientist, Ground News uses a revolutionary system that analyzes where the news is coming from and gives you complete transparency on the potential biases these sources may have. That way, you can read between the lines of media bias and break free from the corporate media agenda. In arming you with the context and transparency, you'll have everything you need to think critically about the news and build responsible media literacy for yourself and others. With Ground News, you're not just mindlessly consuming the media, you're part of a movement that is working to hold them accountable and get straight to the facts. Break through the filter bubbles, the propaganda, and the bias, and subscribe to Ground News today.
Welcome back to the show. You just don't know how it delighted my heart to talk about young David. Baby, he's gonna change the world. Now, tonight on TYT, you don't wanna miss the State of the Union. After the president does the State of the Union, you're gonna be able to hear some of the coverage right here on TYT. This is your number one source. This is where you wanna be, the progressive coverage and reactions to the speech. And tune in where you will have Anna and Jink. It starts at 8:30 p.m. ET and 5:30 p.m. PT on tyt.com/live. Or YouTube. You don't want to miss it. And the watch list is directly after Unbossed. So why don't you go ahead and join JR in his new time slot. Just stay tuned. Don't even stop. Just keep it going. When you got a good thing going, baby, keep it going. Don't stop it. Let the good times roll. And speaking of good times rolling, the TYT members, let's see what you have to say in this second half of our show. Tucker Carlson, this is coming from Mo. Hey, Mo. Tucker Carlson is what happens when you feed a Chucky doll after midnight. No offense to Gremlins and Chucky. Mo, you know you ain't right, but I agree with you, darling. And on Twitch, Gomez420. Hey, Gomez. Tucker Carlson's laugh makes me want to puncture my eardrums. Gomez, don't you do that. Don't you do it. He ain't worth it. But I understand what you are saying. Thank you so much again for your comments. We couldn't get to them all, but we appreciate you, your support of Unbossed, and your support of the TYT network. We couldn't do what we do without you, boo. And speaking of doing what we do, we are so excited on Unbossed to have one of the Lever's finest reporters and researchers, Julia Rock. I read her work often. The Lever is doing the daggone thing. When you talk about independent media, the Lever is right up there in the top 3, baby. Yes, they are. Julia, welcome to our show.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we are so glad to have you. And there's a headline. We're gonna be talking about this one article that you wrote in particular. Team, let's put up the headline: Fear and Loathing Among the Union Busters. A gathering at the National Restaurant Association's legal arm. Lawyers and executives grapple with worker uprising. And so in that article, you really paint the mood, like the opening of the article, you paint the mood and intentions of the gathering of restaurant owners, their lawyers, supporters, upper management, even, the whole notion of Conrad's, stay in place, because they was kind of rattled after a speech that was given by the NLRB General Counsel Jennifer, warning the audience of the consequences that they would face if they fired workers for unionizing and other actions that the restaurant industry may take against employees. Talk to us about this article. Why was it important for you to paint the mood even before you got into the meat of what they were there to gather about?
Well, so like you said, this is sort of an unusual gathering in some sense of restaurant executives, their corporate lawyers, where the keynote speech was given by someone who may be seen as an enemy of these people, the top enforcer of labor law in the US, Jennifer Abruzzo. Like you said, she's the general counsel of the National Labor Relations Board. So she goes up and gives a speech about, how things are changing a little bit under the Biden administration, how companies that retaliate against their workers are going to be held accountable, about how she's looking to sort of expand interpretations of labor law to protect workers. And this really creates sort of an anxious, unhappy mood among the executives and lawyers who are in the audience.
Yeah, and I think it was Chappelle Phillips who, after that, he grabbed the microphone, as you write in the article. Please do not lead the conference. It's all better from here. And him thinking it's better from here, that we're gonna conspire against these employees and forget really what the general counsel just said was really my interpretation. And the National Restaurant Association is sometimes referred to as the other NRA. I think you point that out in the article, and this is certainly not a positive reference, especially for those of us who really are champions for workers' rights. And one of the things that you highlight in the article is that the restaurant industry has long coordinated efforts to suppress labor costs through the NRA, a multi-billion multi-million-dollar lobbying machine funded by its restaurant members and by the fees that workers pay for required food safety classes, according to a recent New York Times report. And Julie, what I found so unacceptable is that the fees that the workers are paying into this fund is being used to undermine their efforts to fight for better wages, work conditions, and benefits.
Yeah, so this is really a pretty devious scheme by the NRA, which is that the group runs a program for food safety certification classes that in a lot of states, restaurant workers are required to take to be eligible to work in restaurants. So the NRA is running this program that workers are required to partake in to have their jobs, and then using the profits from those food safety certification classes to lobby against better working conditions in restaurants for workers.
And do most workers know that they're funding efforts against them? Actually, most of them, do you think, know that this money is going to be used to thwart their ability to make their lives better?
No, I definitely don't think so. And there was a class action lawsuit filed against the NRA for basically misleading workers who were putting their money into this program that was moving to lobby against them.
Yeah, I'm so glad that lawsuit, and it's so deceptive what they are doing to the workers. And then the following tweet that I want us to put up, it references, quote, the blood boiling nature of union busting, and really highlighting your article. And Morley states in the tweet, an amazing blood boiling portrait of a union busters conference, swill guzzling, fake, nice corporate hogs, chortling in amusement at their employees' misery and grunting in disapproval every time workers try to improve their lives. I mean, Julie, it seems to me from your reporting that this gathering was just this. It was for them to plot and plan on how to keep the status quo within the restaurant industry.
Right. Well, as that tweet points out, there was a presentation done by two lawyers from Jackson Lewis, one of these big management side labor law firms, which is sort of a euphemism for union busting, about sort of the rise of unions in the restaurant and hospitality industries.
And incredibly, they invest a whole lot of money. The lobbying efforts of this industry to maintain the status quo, in my opinion, is very chilling. I'm sure you probably shared that same one. So this group has spent its war chest, you go on to say in your article, and I encourage everybody to read this article. The group has spent its war chest on lobbying campaigns to preserve a sub-minimum wage for tip workers who are disproportionately young, women, and people of color, and far more likely to live in poverty than regular minimum wage workers, and to help block state and federal sick leave proposals and minimum wage. If we can put that up side by side with Julia and I mean, Julia, to me, this is part of the heart of the matter here, that they are using their enormous lobbying power, their owner-donor status within but both on the state, primarily state and federal level, to stop workers from being able just to even live a good life. And the sub-minimum wage worker, can you share with us what the sub-minimum wage is and about how much it is? I know it may vary state by state, but on average, there is an hourly rate.
Yeah, so the sort of keystone achievement of the NRA has been preserving this sub-minimum wage, and right now, the sub-minimum wage federally is $2.13 an hour. And this is a wage that tipped workers can be paid, provided that they spend a certain amount of their time doing tipped work. So mostly we think of that as being waiters and waitresses. But the sub-minimum wage, which is as crazy as it sounds, has been $2.13 an hour for 3 decades. And it's been the great achievement of the NRA to keep that in place. And this is a wage where far more workers making a sub-minimum wage than a regular minimum wage, as you can imagine, live below the poverty line. These are more young workers, women, and people of color than other types of workers. So this is really an impoverishing wage that has been preserved by the NRA because its restaurant industry members sort of rely on it to pad their profits.
Yeah, and part of it, I mean, we being taxpayers, subsidize most of those workers because they're not making a wage that's far from a living wage, but they need to be subsidized through other services, whether it's Medicaid or food stamp relief, that kind of thing. And so it really is a smack in the face to the taxpayer, and we have to do something about that. Julie, in our remaining time, is there anything? One Fair Wage comes to mind. I want to throw that out in terms of organizations that are working very hard to turn the tide, both on the minimum wage and the sub-minimum wage. But is there anything else that people can do to get involved and also support the efforts of workers in this industry?
Well, yeah, another group that comes to mind that's been working on this is the Restaurant Opportunity Center, and they've also been working on things like union efforts in the restaurant industry. But I will say what came out in this story is that ultimately it seems like the thing that these chain restaurants are worried about the most is something like what's happened at Starbucks with this really rapid union campaign happening in their chains. So I think it's worth noting that what they're scared of is worker unions.
Yeah, the woke movement, so to speak, barreling through and helping these workers unionize, because most of them are not unionized. Well, thank you, Julia Rock, so much for your work. We hope to have you back on Unbossed. Please read her article. It is an important article, Fear and Loathing Among the Union Busters. That is our time today on Unbossed. You know what I want you to do. I want you to keep the faith, baby, but keep the fight. Until next time.